In your opinion, has the prosecution made a strong enough case for the jury to convict Hunter Biden?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they have. They brought in so much evidence. I think it's almost incontrovertible that Hunter Biden lied on the form. He was using drugs. He was a drug addict, et cetera. All of that stuff has been proven, but I don't know that the jury necessarily is going to turn the case on that, depending on whether the defense was successful in eliciting what I would call the nullification mercy defense, which is what they're trying to get at and say he's rehabilitated. This was a technical violation, no big deal. But as far as the actual elements of the crime itself, yes, overwhelming presentation of the case.
And remembering the charges, again, as well, this having to do with lying on a federal document, lying to the gun store owner, and then possessing a firearm illegally. None of which, though, are drug charges. But yet that seems to be what was brought up on a different network here. Morning Joe, discussing this case, and one of the guests on the show brought the conversation back to her own struggles with addiction. Watch this.
It seems to me that it would be very hard to find a jury that has been untouched by addiction completely.
The disease that Hunter Biden has is the same disease that I have, is the same disease that, almost 20% of the country has. And, Republicans do love to talk about fentanyl coming over the border. There's a reason that drugs are a problem in this country, and it's largely because of addiction. So this is another part of that.
And if you remember back to opening statements within this case, that was brought up, stating the prosecution saying we would not be here if this was merely about drug choices. He did make this choice to get in a car. He did make a choice to go to a gun store, to go in, discuss buying this. Would this be sympathies? Would sympathies be a factor in jury deliberations? Remember, you had a whole team of Biden family members in the courtroom yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point is, you're exactly right, Sean. I mean, the reality is that he committed the crime. That's unequivocal. The next question is the jury going to convict? And they should convict if the prosecution has basically disaggregated the sympathy factor from the actual crime. And that was what the prosecution had to do. They had to say, look, he may be a sympathetic figure. He may have been an addict. He may have done this under the influence of his addiction. But the reality is he still committed this crime. And regardless of your sympathies and mercy for him that you want to extend, you must convict if beyond a reasonable doubt you're convinced that he committed the crime. And there is no doubt here that he committed the crime. And so the real question is going to be, is the jury going to basically say, well, we think he's rehabilitating. He was having a real struggle in his life, a lot of bad stuff going on, that type of thing. If they get back into the emotion as opposed to the actual rule of law here, that will be the post upon which they might acquit.
All right. We'll be watching, of course, as those deliberations continue. We've got a reporter on the scene, so we'll relay that to our viewers as soon as it comes down. In the meantime, Congressman, we're watching some fallout from that New York criminal case for the former President Donald Trump, in which Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is now saying he will testify before the House Judiciary Committee, having to do, again, with that New York guilty conviction. You sit on this committee here. What do you want to learn and hear from Alvin Bragg?
Well, I think there's a lot to learn from Mr. Bragg, but I think one of the most important things is, how was he influenced by the Biden White House? How was he influenced? Why did we find the former number 3 at DOJ going to work in his office? Why did Alvin Bragg reject and turn down the prosecution initially? Why did the feds turn down the prosecution initially? And yet when this DOJ attorney comes into his office, all of a sudden it gets reinvigorated? Why was the timing so coincidental with the declaration of running for campaign or the candidacy of Donald Trump? Why do those seem to coincide? Why is that just a few days after Trump announces that then Bragg changes his mind and says, we're going to prosecute? Why did it take so many years? I mean, why did he run on this? These are the things, there's a lot to ask Alvin Bragg.